Hi, my name is Bob and I hate Peter Jackson's King Kong. It's one of the most frustrating movies I've ever seen, it feels like the longest movie ever made, and I have been forced into watching it in full multiple times, adding up to entire days of my life that I will never get back. It's stuffed with extended action scenes that go on for an eternity and have the highest spectacle to boredom ratio ever put to film, starting a trend PJ would famously continue in his Hobbit trilogy. But hey, they made a game of the movie, and it's supposed to be quite an innovative and thrilling experience, so at least something good came from it. Right? This is another one of those games that some people look back at as a cult classic, and I'm just... Can I say that they're wrong? Am I just allowed to call their personal opinions entirely erroneous? I will certainly give people who look back at this game fondly some serious side-eye. Did you really like the game or just the idea of the game? Did you play it for more than 15 minutes? Are we talking about the same game here? In any case, for funsies and because it was a donation goal, I didn't just play Peter Jackson's King Kong, the official game of the movie. I played Peter Jackson's King Kong, the official game of the movie, Gamers Edition. Now, how any other versions of this game are not also Gamers Editions eludes me, but that's what Ubisoft, a company known entirely for only making correct and logical decisions, and not at all being a profit-sucking, soul-crushing hotbed of sexual harassment, decided to call this digital-only PC port that had the graphical enhancements of the Xbox 360 version, but had also removed Kong's facial expressions and added a lot of glitches and crashes, including, for some reason, very long grasses. The overall game is entirely identical to the regular version, however, so here are my thoughts. Especially coming from a boring AAA game company like Ubisoft, even in 2005, I appreciate the attempt at innovation. Having no visible UI other than occasional button prompts, trying to communicate the things that are normally told to the player through icons and text and whatnot, all through entirely diegetic visuals, sounds, and actions, I dig it. Doesn't work all that great, and it can get so frustrating that it wrecks whatever sense of immersion it tried to create, and clearly nearly 20 years later it hasn't been that influential on mainstream games. But for a big budget movie tie-in, they tried something new instead of something safe, and I can only applaud it. Peter Jackson was able to round up the cast of the movie to spend an afternoon in the voice booth, and while Adrian Brody mostly just grunts and yells tiredly, Jack Black puts in a standout performance.
Did you hear that? And his arms! Did you see the size of his arms?
I won't comment on the rest of the cast, but Jables is giving it 110%, and when, not if, he watches this video, I want to thank him from the bottom of my heart for being one of the few highlights of this accursed interactive video computer game. It's also kinda cool how you can distract creatures with the corpses of other monsters. It's one of the few things that makes the world feel alive and dynamic. Also, some of the set pieces do look dramatic and are impressive for when the game was released, at least the first time you see them.
Would you look at the size of those legs? They're like tree trunks!
And that's it for the pros! Now here's a non-comprehensive list of things that suck. First and foremost, the game is excruciatingly linear. Every now and then there might be a somewhat open arena where you have to run back and forth a little, usually to collect the same puzzle item over and over again. But 90% of the game is one long corridor disguised as an island jungle. And island jungle also describes almost all you will see. For as much biodiversity as Skull Island is supposed to have, the environments are extremely repetitive. It's the same jungle, ruins, cliffs, and rivers as far as the render distance will let you see, right up until the very final minutes of the game, and then only very briefly. As much as I praised the innovative elements a couple of paragraphs ago, having to hold a button to ready your gun is frustrating. You spend a lot of time holding two buttons to shoot your guns, and it leads to many situations where you're trying to shoot but you forget to ready your gun, so you think maybe you're out of ammo and now you're dead again, and worst of all, you have to play even more of the game! You barely get a choice of weapons too. You can only hold one at a time, but there's not much of a strategic element to it. By the time you find a crate with a new weapon, you will have long ago exhausted your ammunition on the current one. As a result, you spend more time in the game grabbing infinite bone spears and hiding from dinosaurs than you do defending yourself with your guns. Every now and then the game changes things up and you get to play as the king himself. These start off kinda interesting but get boring and repetitive real quick, and aside from the increasingly frustrating escalating battles with more and more dinosaurs and gargoyles, you're mostly just holding forward and pressing space to jump. These are the parts of the game that are supposed to be the most cinematic, but Kong can only wall run so much before my disbelief is no longer suspended. Also, there is so much yelling, screaming, shouting, hollering, constantly, at every moment from everyone.
Up there! There's too many of them!
And the worst part is, you can't even shoot your allies in the gut to get them to shut the hell up. I must confess though, at some point I was having kind of a good time hate playing the game.
Oh, I'm dry! Good luck, Jack!
This might be another one of those effects of streaming games, having an audience to share in the misery and hilarity with. Playing it like this, the game was monotonous, yes, bad for sure, but not quite boring. The best thing I can say about Peter Jackson's King Kong, the official game of the movie Gamers Edition presented by Ubisoft, is that even though it's 3 times as long as the movie, it feels much, much shorter. But just like the movie, the racism leaves a bad taste in my mouth. Might be a hot take here, but I'm not a big fan of racism. Also, the game just sucks.